Very good. Now we start the recording. And can we check with you, Margaret, if we hear you, can you unmute yourself, or will Rasmus do that?
Yes, I'm here. I was just trying to get the PowerPoint ready.
Okay.
Make me a co-host so I can share it. If that's all right.
I think Rasmus.
You should be able to share it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So I think, Rasmus, yes, you did start the recording. I want to welcome you all to this digital meeting event with Professor Margaret Moga from Indiana University. You're very welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I think we also invite members of SPR, but I can't see any person from there. But if they will be in touch, I would also send them the link so they can listen to it afterwards.
Okay, thank you.
I have noticed your name, Margaret, on many reports, both yourself and also with Jan Kruth. So I noticed you have a long record of studies in healing, and also touching about with the consciousness and magnetic fields. And I find it very interesting to know this special approach to healing, because there are so many approaches, as I guess you will touch upon. Yes. And I think we will do it like, if you have any questions,
Okay.
write them in the chat, and my technician Rasmus will pick them up.
Okay.
Afterwards.
All right.
Okay, so very welcome, Margaret. You can
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. It's thrilled.
Yes.
Thrilled to be here. Thank you. I can find it now.
Yes, now we'll start.
Let's go back to the original.
Yes.
Okay. Well, good. All right.
Yes.
Well, Goran picked a very broad title for me. Thank you. So anything you want to talk about, I'm happy to talk about. So, all right. But I will focus initially on my magnetic field studies of healing. They've really sort of not been really noticed. People haven't replicated them, and I basically ran out of money. And so thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about them, because I think they are important. I think they're worth replicating if we can. All right, so looking at the scientific studies of healing, I think healing is actually a really good way to study parapsychology, because there are very unusual, the healers certainly are having psychic experiences, and there's unusual phenomena in the room. I've actually been trained as a healer myself, a healing touch practitioner. So I was actually because I wanted to feel it firsthand. And so, oops, I didn't know I'd gone back. So these are some of the scientific studies of healing, is looking at the effects of healing. A lot of studies are looking at if there's any changes with energy healing in the client. Physiology has been another one, but I'm particularly interested in the bioemissions and even more so in the environmental signatures. What's the space look like? What's happening in the space? Magnetic field activity. I've done some random event generator output. My goal is to do some electrostatic potentials. So I'm very interested in the environment. And so, but I think what's helpful is, because I'm not sure if you all have much background you have in this, I wanted to point out some of the pivotal studies that got me to the point of doing magnetic field recording. I wanted to tell you what sort of studies sort of got me interested and excited about this. The first one was Green et al., the copper wall experiments. I don't know if anyone's heard of that. Goran, have you heard of the copper wall experiments? Or no? Well, I'll talk about them. They're they're important. They're important. 1991, Elmer Green was a psychologist, sort of the father of biofeedback, and they measured body potential, voltage potential, the whole body. And they also measured they had 4 walls, copper walls in the room, one in front of the healer and the healee, one behind them, back, one up, and then one down. So that's what these letters are showing here. The F, the U, if you look in the figure, the B for back, D for down. So they're recording potential on the walls and recording potential of the healer. And what they found was that the healer had showed electrical voltage surges during the healing, and they were in the negative direction. So very, very big change in their body potential during the healing. And those surges sort of traveled outward and basically were recorded on the walls also. So you can see sort of some of these dotted, sort of this tiny little dotted lines, basically showing you the wall surges basically that occurred. And so they hypothesized that energy healing may involve an increase in charge in the healer's body, followed by an emission of charge. So that whole charge thing, just very interesting. No one's duplicated this. And then there's the CETO study, very important. He only found that he studied a Qigong healer's hands, magnetic field strength, and he found magnetic field oscillations. And this is just illustrating during Qi emission. Basically, there's called external Qi and Qigong, where they can basically emit some of their energy towards someone who needs healing. They only saw it in 3 out of 37 cases, but they definitely saw a low frequency, 4 to 10 hertz in 2 to 4 milligauss. And so those numbers are all important, and we'll come back to them. But this is sort of what I wanted to duplicate, was this one. And then there's the Hisamitsu study, also with CETO. Also looking, they found changes in the magnetic field during breath work, during Qigong breath work, basically. And they found also, once again, in the 1 to 3 milligauss range, and that is easily visually, is the other study. But so there were these studies. And then finally, the Zimmerman study that was reporting in James Oshman's book, Energy Medicine. He also found magnetic field oscillations in a magnetically shielded room with a squid magnetometer. So really good equipment, really a shielded room. It was normally used for a squid magnetometer. And he found this beautiful wave that changed in frequency, basically, and it was low frequencies, 0.3 to 30 hertz. So very interesting. Most of the activity in the 7 to 8 hertz range. So that was another one. And finally, Schwartz and colleagues, Gary Schwartz, many of you probably have heard of him, a famous sort of scientist in energy healing. And they also found milligauss magnetic field oscillations adjacent to hands of Reiki healers. So that was sort of the prep work for me. So it was like, of course I can measure magnetic field oscillations, So my lab, we did two sets of experiments. We wanted to see if we could replicate any of these findings. We started out with William Bengston, a healer, Dr. Bengston, a single healer. He can shrink mice with tumors. He's a very, very effective, powerful healer using hands-on and distant healing. And then I did a second set with multiple healers, healing touch practitioners with diverse clients. So I did 2 sets, and I'm recording magnetic field activity in both of these experiments. So the first one with Dr. Bengston, here he is healing mice with tumors on his lap, and we're recording magnetic field activity while he's doing that. We saw the magnetic field oscillations, and I apologize, it looks a little blurry to me. So we observed them both during distant healing and hands-on healing, and the oscillations were similar appearance to the ones reported by Zimmerman. So this is very important, because it shows that I'm in a natural, unshielded environment, and I'm seeing the same oscillations that Dr. Zimmerman saw in a shielded environment. So that's very important. And also there's a lot of properties of these oscillations. I call them waves. And we saw that I tried to isolate his healing into one room. I called it Blue 1 because it was painted blue. And you can see at the top the different rooms. We had multiple mice in different rooms. Most of them had tumors. One white had no tumor, healthy animals. And so in the room where we had Dr. Bengston was sending his healing, we see that the waves, which are the black dots, basically, during the magnetic field recording, they were most numerous during his healing session. And then there was like reverberations in the room that continued after his distant healing session. And this is important. We see this with the healing touch, and I'll show that to you in a moment. But we also found a number of oscillations in the healthy room, the one with the healthy mice. And so there's always questions. There's a lot of questions still. But then with a room where there were tumors, blue 2, but no treatment, very few. And then the office, there was no mice and only 2 magnetic field oscillation in these time points. So I was always trying to do other rooms, control rooms during these healing sessions. So my big one was recording magnetic field activity during healing touch sessions with clients. And healing touch was developed by nurses. And so it's a bunch of different interventions, different techniques that they use in typically hour-long sessions. Some are hands off the body, but some are touching the body. So different techniques and typically an hour-long session. So how did I measure this? I did a continuous recording of magnetic field before, during, and after each healing touch session. 2 Hall-type magnetometers connected to a data recorder and then a laptop PC using LabScribe software. So just illustrating here with a client and a healer, just illustrating the magnetometers behind her. I had them to the sides, right and left of the client and the healer, because I wanted the healer to have enough room to move around the client. I tried to make the experience as natural as possible so that both the client and the healer were very comfortable. That was my goal, because initially I tried to do recordings in my lab here, as you see. People would freeze up. It's just not a healing environment here. And so I went to a clinic examining room. This is actually in a local clinic here. And so rooms where people are used to having there's a massage table and people are used to being very in a private space and receiving care. And so people feel very comfortable here. And so that was my goal. It's a naturalistic recording, an unshielded environment. So this is a bottom here, a screened shot of what looks like in my computer screen, just showing the 2 channels. So there's different activity on the right and the left magnetometers. And this actually was really kind of interesting. Initially, I had one of my early healers that I worked with. She said I think it was the second session I did. She said, oh, I felt a release on the right side of the client. And then I felt a release on the left side. And healers talk about releases. They talk about these energy releases and they can feel them. They can see that the client takes a deep breath and releases. They can see it on the table. They can see it on the table. And so I thought that was interesting. So I looked at my recordings and sure enough, there was this wave, the magnetic field oscillation showed up on the right and then it showed up on the left. It was what she'd sort of described. So that was sort of an early indicator that these might be the emotional releases, the energetic releases that healers talk about. And this is just some examples. Once again, the same wave I saw with Dr. Bankston down there in D. But what's interesting is Zimmerman only showed half a wave. C is the full wave. It's a broad spectrum wave, but very low frequency, 0 to 30 hertz. Maybe 0 to 40 hertz max. So it almost looks artificial, but it's also, on the other hand, it's sort of ideal for stimulating cells in the human body because you're getting a broad range of frequencies, those low frequencies that are very active on stimulating cells. And we'll come back to that later. So during the magnetic field with a healing touch, I did 26 sessions. I recorded from 13 different healers, 26 different clients. Each healer would do 1 to 4 clients in a single day. I observed the magnetic field oscillations in 24 of those 26 sessions. They varied in amplitude depending on the session. This is an example here. And so I came from sort of a physiology background. So this continuous recording, I would take a sample at each time point. So at the 0 time point, that's what the field looked like on one side. This is just one side here. Before healing touch, and then 15 minutes later, I would take another sample of the field, and then 35 minutes as 0, the beginning of the healing touch session, and then 55 minutes is 20 minutes into the healing touch session, 40 minutes in the healing, and then finally a 6-minute session, basically. And then I recorded post-healing touch. So I take samples of the continuous recording so you can get a feel for what I saw during the session. Notice that the amplitudes, we're talking about 0.75 milligauss. So maybe at the max for this session of like around 1 milligauss is what I'm recording here. The amplitude of the magnetic field oscillations. But remember, I'm not close to the body. I'm about 2 to 3 feet away from the body. So this is a really good example of, this is a instructor, healing touch instructor, who did 4 different clients in a single day. So this is really pretty cool. So this is his special healing room in his house. And these are different clients with different symptoms. And it's very interesting. We ended up with different recordings. So the first client, 2A, is a woman with fibromyalgia, a lot of pain and stiffness. And so we would see these low amplitude magnetic field oscillations indicated at 30. And then 2B and 2C were pretty healthy individuals. One had some minor muscle sprain and the other had no symptoms, was actually a student of healing touch. So you can see it just very, very basically no oscillations. And then finally, the last one of the day was a mother whose daughter in her early 20s had just been diagnosed with a serious cancer. And she was quite upset. She had a big emotional release around 60 minutes, actually. And so the waves were very high and they lasted a long time, several hours. I haven't shown the full extent of those waves. And you can see the scale is different. So the height of those would be maybe 7 or 8 milligauss. So what I found was the emotional releases, they were bigger amplitude. They're more energy. So the physical releases are very small. You see that in the 2A versus the emotional release in 2D, very typical. You also see this if there's a lot of heaviness in the field and they're clearing heaviness like asthma, you'll see a big release also. So I went on a search for what type of controls to do for this. And I didn't want to do sham because basically you're always having sort of an effect, even if you're not doing the actual, you're not trained as a healer, you're still basically you're still having an effect. If you're having sympathy for the person or being kind to them, you're having a healing effect. So I looked at mock controls, what I call mock. So I actually had this one, I've got 2 different healers, healer P and healer Q. And healer P, I had her do a whole session of an hour without a client. So it's an empty massage table. So I'm getting her movements around the table, doing the sort of intervention. I had her pick an imaginary illness like gallbladder disease. Okay, how would you treat that? And do it for an hour. And so that's basically, she's treating an imaginary illness with imaginary client for an hour. And you can see how quiet it is. So that was good. That was a good, nice control. And then the healer came right behind that. And you see the oscillations that are typical for an energy healing session. And they continued into the lunch session, which was post healing touch, and even a little bit into the next mock session with healer Q. So that was very interesting because I find that healers who do multiple sessions in a day, the room is still reverberating from the last client. And I think you could ask healers, they would probably agree. So there's some healing energy still left in the room from the last client. Anyway, healer Q and also some oscillations. I can go going here. There we go. And then I did another set of controls where I did the client, but no healer. So I actually had clients come in and just lie on the massage table, the same table, and just listen to a progressive relaxation where they tense muscles and release. So they're doing a relaxation throughout their body for an hour, and to compare that with the healing touch. And you notice immediately that it's a higher noise background. There are some oscillations because they are doing some physical releases, but there's just higher noise in the whole recording. It's kind of interesting. And I'm going to go into the next slide to talk about that, because before I had the healers do the mock controls, I actually did 10 myself. I actually went into a clinic exam room and did an imaginary client to see what I would get if I did that. And of course, my first one, I had a lot of discomfort. I was literally in a medical clinic, in a clinical exam room, doing imaginary hand movements around a table. And so I felt a lot of discomfort doing that. And it took me multiple sessions to feel comfortable doing that. And finally, in the 7th session, I had a common cold. And I treated myself, imagineering, And I've had a nice oscillation you can see in the session. And then finally, by the 9th session, I finally hit it. You notice that the noise is down now to the level that we saw with the Healing Touch practitioners. I was feeling warmth in my heart area. I was feeling love for what I was doing. I was feeling peace. I was basically in the space that you're supposed to be for doing Healing Touch. And you can see now, basically, there's almost no noise compared to the previous. It's lower noise than what the previous, same scale, basically. And finally, at the 2nd session I started to lose focus at the end in 10. I started to think about what I was going to do for dinner, and then the noise started to creep back in. So the interesting part of these experiments is they're picking up our thoughts, our intentions, our emotions. This could almost be a good technique for doing experimenter effect during parapsychology experiments to see how they're influencing the space, and also doing the linger effect to see if can we pick up the lingering, before we put on something else, do another experiment. So because this environmental energy seems to not just disappear, it seems to stay, and it seems to be related to us. And so I learned the hard way, setting up these experiments, that I had to be in a very still, quiet spot to set up these electrodes so I could start reverberations that could really sort of destroy the experiment. So I actually had to learn about my own vibrations in doing these. So it's very interesting. I was always doing controls. I was doing other types. I recorded during Tai Chi. I recorded during group sessions. I went down to the Monroe Institute, recorded there. I did all sorts of recordings. I am not going to show all of them, but I did this funny one down the hall from the exam room. I just recorded a magnetometer in an office. I just wanted to, and of course, sure enough, very quiet office work one day, 2 women very quietly working together. And then one day, all of a sudden, they're so intense, these vibrations are so intense. And this other day, I said, oh my God, what were you doing? What were you doing? And they had a lot of frustrations with their husbands, and they had this heart-to-heart talk with each other about how messy their husbands were. And they both had this big release, and it was in this office. And so I call it everyday ordinary releases. And so we talk about energy healing being special, but the truth is we're doing healing for each other all the time. And we could be recording these waves in our environment. So, I mean, there's all sorts of potentials for these sorts of experiments. The biggest waves, I will tell you, the biggest waves I recorded was in group work at the Monroe Institute. It was during the guidelines program. If any of you are familiar with the Monroe Institute in Virginia, doing binaural beat and changing the consciousness. And so, yeah, so it was just, so just a summary of these experiments. There seems to be a distinct waveform in the low frequencies. And the way I see this, because there is always 60 hertz that we have to filter out here in the United States. I'm recording, so I'm filtering out only everything except like 0 to 40 hertz. And I'm seeing this wave that Dr. Zimmerman did see in a shielded environment. So it's very, very promising that we can do this in natural environments. And finally, I just wanted to give a little talk because my title was so large. I wanted to talk a little bit about any theories and talk with all of you too, ideas. So people were pretty negative about electromagnetic theories for energy healing for quite a while because they said it couldn't account for distant healing. But now if you like Shamini Jain, her new book, Healing Ourselves, it's a new book. I think people are turning now and realizing that there's 2 mechanisms, that there are electromagnetic fields locally that are actually identical to what's distant, but we don't understand that distant mechanism. The distant mechanism we really don't understand, but we still are seeing changes in electromagnetic fields during healing. And so Vicki Slater, who's a RN PhD, she proposed magnetic induction as a possible mechanism for healing. And it was just interesting. Ability of one device to induce or cause a voltage or current change in a second device without direct contact or with direct contact. So that's a possibility. What interests me is also the charge-discharge cycle proposed by Wilhelm Reich with orgone. He discovered orgone. He typically put that cycle in for sexual activity, but from what I've seen in other people, psychologists after him, it seems to be the whole physiology of the human. We tend to build up charge and discharge. And that's why, like, for example, exercise is so important. It's discharging the charge that we've taken in with our food, the charge that we've got developed from emotions. And then working with people is discharging, like I said, that big emotional release. So we have this ability to build up charge, and we see that with the healers. And the importance of, for health and balance, we need to discharge. So it's a very interesting idea. And I also, people have sort of proposed with the macro PK, the psychokinesis, that maybe they've got developed to supercharge. And so this could also be related to that too. Finally, there's electrostatics forces. I did a survey of healing touch practitioners, and they have experiences that are maybe due to electrostatic forces. They have a pricking sensation in their hands, which you can get with electrostatic buildup. There's blue light streaming from their fingertips they've seen, and that's also related to electrostatic buildup. And finally, the spark-like sensations while touching their clients. And I've actually felt that actually. So there is, you can get a shock by doing an energy healing with your client if you're not careful. And then finally, just recently I've been looking at kundalini, and people have talked about the tremendous energy basically rising up through the body. I think there might be an increase in body voltage potential or body current, electrical current. So all of these different areas, they seem to sort of cry out for us to do additional recordings of body potential. And actually what I'm looking at is a static meter. I try to measure some of the charge buildup in healers during meditation and during healing. And I'm also working on a chakra experiences survey because I think that chakras are physically detectable. So there's all sorts of fun projects still out there for people in the healing area. And sorry, I'm a little short on this, but that gives us a chance to talk. So thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This was really many ideas and possibilities with all these magnetic fields being important. Yes. And
Yes.
also, yes.
Yeah, we really have an effect on our environment. We have an effect on each other, and we just haven't started to measure those effects and hold the group energies that we all have felt at some point in our lives. We, haven't, some people have done it with the random event generators, and you can see changes with group, energy. But I think there's so much more potential because I think we all need the feedback on the effect we have on our environment, like I've discovered the hard way. Hard way, I'll tell you. So
yes.
So yeah.
But what is the established view among biologists on these experiments? Do they understand it, or are there known mechanisms for normal biologists about this?
No, it's what bothers me, and that's why I really want to study body potential. It's not in any physiology textbook. We talk about all the cell potentials of the body. We talk sometimes about the tissue potentials. We do recordings from muscle, but we don't do the whole body recordings.
No.
Yeah. So I think there's more to be done on the physiology.
Yeah, quite a new. I'm not biologist myself, but I can imagine.
Yeah. I'm sorry if I talk too fast for you guys, or if okay.
Now I noticed you're enthusiastic. Absolutely, and you also are open-minded to the idea of chakra, which that's not a Western idea, that there are chakras in the body.
The what in the body, or the
chakra?
Oh, the chakras. Yes. I just had a short review accepted because we've ignored them. We do, there's the new age. We have a zillion books. Everybody's trying to, learn about them, but we haven't studied them. And so it's,
But are they accepted in Indian? I mean, it comes from the Indian philosophy in India.
Yes, it does.
They are established in Indian science.
Yes, they are.
But not in Western.
Not in Western. The study I like most is Hiroshi Motoyama, who recorded light emission from the chakras, and yeah.
Can Western biology understand that?
Yeah. So I think that's where to go. And I think John Kruth is going to look at that. He thinks because he has the ability to measure photon release of the chakras. But they have to sort of narrow the measurement site. So it's not the whole body. They have to sort of get close to the chakras and see if there's a photon release. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really, there's so many
Yeah.
quite new areas.
Mhm.
Even the connection with the normal psychokinesis you mentioned,
Mhm.
also
Yes.
quite interesting.
Yes. Yeah, you could probably measure that charge buildup too. Yeah.
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 You mentioned many references. Do you have a list of references that you mentioned in this?
I can provide them. Yeah, thank you. I
Yeah.
will. Sorry. Yeah.
I myself I would like to have a look at some of them. I think some others too, perhaps.
Yes, the Motoyama, Hiroshi Motoyama, he was, his book on chakras. I don't think I have it with me today.
So I recognize his name.
Yes.
Yes.
That book is amazing. It actually talks about his spiritual awakenings. As for parapsychologists, yes, you'd be very interested, because he would talks about the chakras don't just open, they can awaken, and you develop certain psychic abilities with each chakra. And so very fascinated in his chapter on his own spiritual path. It's very, very interesting. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I know we study ourselves too, right? We don't just.
Yeah. Yes. You become a part of this,
That's right, Marie. Yeah. Yep.
your own energy.
That's right.
Yeah.
Our own energy too. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Perhaps are there any questions from the participants, Rasmus?
Yeah, we have one question here, and I'm gonna try my best to translate this from Swedish. And this is from Lystran, and she wonders why you chose 1 hour sessions in your research, and she also wonders if there were differences during that time that were noticeable, and I guess repeatable. And she she also says that she practices healing herself, and in her experiences, the first 15 minutes are the most effective as a background to why you chose an hour.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I noticed that most healing studies are very short. And I think they often do Reiki healers. Is she a Reiki healer? Are very fast. I think are very. I find with the healing touch that most of them we're taught. Healing touch is taught to do like an hour, and there's multiple techniques that are done over the hour. And I find with the younger healers, it takes them about 15 minutes to warm up until I see the magnetic field moving. There was that one healer. Well, there's two in there. And one of the mock healers, I didn't point it out, was very experienced, and it was amazing. She closed the door. She was taking an intake, talking to the client, and the waves started immediately. She was very, very experienced, and the waves started immediately. So, but I find with the younger healers, it takes them about 15 minutes, and then things sort of warm up. So yes, it's a different type of healing. It's a magnetic healing. I think we're literally building up charge. You can literally feel charge build up. Like I said, you can feel some sparks. So it's a different type of healing than Reiki. I've seen Reiki healers and they seem to be emitting light. So it might be a different recordings for them. People have talked about it. And I've actually had reconnective healing from a woman in England, actually. And I thought I was being microwaved. The heat was so intense. So I think there's different frequencies. And I think there's different abilities. I think some really experienced healers can do it within the first 15 minutes.
You think there are different magnetic fields for different techniques like Reiki and healing touch?
Yeah, I think there are different frequencies, maybe even different instruments would capture a different healing session. There's some healers I know in Ohio. They say they use sound. And so, so I love to measure the sound that they say. They say sound is more effective than light. And they've done both. And so I really think there's different instruments are needed for different types of healing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a quite new approach. I mean, healing is for most people mental, but also includes pure biological fields, or what we call magnetic fields of physics. So it's an involvement both with psychology, biology, and physics.
Oh, well, Marie just said she can see or heard her chakra spinning. Well, that's awesome. Could you, I'll send you all the link to my chakra survey. If you have interesting chakra experiences, I'd really appreciate you participating in the survey, because it's exploratory. I'm trying to see what's the full range of chakra experiences, since no one's done it. No one's done it. Yeah.
No, that's quite.
Okay. Yeah.
Quite.
Wow.
Yeah.
You heard your chakra. Hey, I have another one. I had a client, I did, an older lady, and I was giving free sessions. So she kept coming back. She just loved it. And I really got fond of her. And one day I was working on her and we were both really fond of each other. We worked together multiple sessions and we both heard bells chiming in the room. It was like we were a wave, a standing wave, and we were hearing these bells ringing. It was beautiful. So yeah, there's sound effects. Yeah. Very interesting.
Yes, I understand that also sound is important and a possible mechanism for influencing.
Yes. I think in India, right, they do the mantras in order to stimulate the different chakras with sound.
Yeah. And there is nothing in Western biology that can correspond to chakra.
No, they've actually there's nerve plexuses and over where the major chakras are. And so there's been a couple studies of people showing a connection between the location of that chakra and a collection of nerve fibers underneath the plexus.
Yeah.
So that might be important. Yeah.
Does the concept of biofield is a part of in this?
Yeah. There's what's always been frustrating is people see different things in the biofield. And you almost need someone who can go through and sort of organize what everyone's seen. No one's really done that systematic, what's common to most of the descriptions. And yeah, we almost need a scholar to do that. Yeah.
But do you regard biofields to be established?
Yeah. There's that was the symposium I'm trying to organize for July. This is hard. It's hard. A lot of people talk about biofields. Not too many people are doing experiments on biofields. And so it's hard to, but one of the most successful measurements seems to be Motoyama's AMI device. People are finding consistency with his device and measuring what they think is the bioenergy within the biological body. So I'm hoping to have that talk.
Okay. Yeah.
With the SSE, yeah. Society for Scientific Exploration. Yeah.
Have you noticed the interest I have mentioned about embryologists having an interest in some kind of biofield?
Which biologists?
Embryologists.
Is that in the
physicians try to understand how an organism can develop.
Oh, developmental biologist. Yeah, the embryologist. No, there was a study. There was a good by Shang. There's a good theoretical review article where he talks about that with the chakras being sort of like a place with stem cells and still even in the adult. So yeah, it's a good review actually. I could put that link in too.
Yeah.
So that's the closest I've found. And then there was another good one. Basically on the subtle body. So I'll add a few more.
Okay.
Good papers. Yeah. For people. Yeah.
Oh, really very interesting views mentioned here. Quite many, quite interesting. And I think most of
They haven't measured magnetic fields from chakras. They've just seen oscillations. They don't I don't see a number. I can't remember a number for the chakra oscillations. I'll go back and look at his paper. Yeah.
Okay, okay, very good.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, any more questions?
None right now, but I guess we could open the field. I have a thought though, based on yeah, on the in the end of your presentation, you presented these different possible ways a healer interacted with the body. Is someone looking at the possibility that there might be all of these like working together in some way, that it's both electromagnetical and other?
Yeah. Yes. And if you've ever seen Claude Swanson's book, which is very thick, very large, he's gone through every possibility and he doesn't tie it together. He just says, this can be working. This can be, he does that. He says all these different things can be happening. And so his book is pretty amazing. Claude Swanson. Yeah. Because like with kundalini, it's probably a body potential. It's probably electric current, but there's biophotons, very intense. Some people have said that they're coherent light. It's almost like a laser beam going up the spine. So, I mean, my goodness. Anyway, and yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So I guess if anyone has a question, feel free to either write it in the chat or unmute yourself.
Yes, we have all opportunities now for questions.
So what sort of research are you all doing in parapsychology? What's your areas, specialties?
I don't think there are that many parapsychologists in this group. I have done mine in twin telepathy, as you.
Yes, I know yours. Yeah, twin telepathy. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I've of course I especially have an interest in both healing and the biofield, even if I'm not a biologist, so I don't have the context. But I find so many. I mean, you know the basic physics and biology, so you recognize many terms, but what is established and not is not. I don't know that, but I can imagine.
Yeah.
Many things.
Yeah, and the whole telepathy thing is fascinating to me too, because we need to develop it as a human race. We need to we need to think together as one, and just the talking just keeps us separate. And so that's sort of another interesting, because some people with the kundalini, the telepathic abilities develop, and people who've had contact with UFOs. And I think it's an energy change, a sort of restructuring of the body, so you can do it. So it's a fascinating, once again, I think it's body related. I think if we can enhance our physiology, we can do telepathy. And I think we need to really talk about that. Or it could be a group field, learning to develop a group field together. So we could do an experiment on that, just trying to have a group work together and see if we can't do that.
So a question about connection with consciousness.
Yes, the EM sensitivity, very interesting you bring that up. I meet monthly with a group of healers. And one night, one of them just went off. She said, I can feel the wireless. I can feel all these frequencies coming in. She says, it's driving me nuts, because the healers are sensitive to it. I'm sensitive to it. I have bought shielding clothing now, because I think there's so many routers in my neighborhood at this point. I think I've reached a saturation level with the sensitivity. I don't know when it's going to be okay for us to talk about it. I think we still are hesitant to talk about that. These frequencies. I actually read a fascinating blog the other day about someone who said that they can hear the AM radio station, that they actually can, that those waves aren't nothing, that they impinge on our field, they affect our field. All that noise affects our field, even though we're not conscious of it. And so at some point we need to say, wait a minute, I want a cleaner environment, EM environment so I can think more coherently. I can feel more myself. We're going to have to speak up at some point. We need cleaner environments. We need cleaner technology. So we're not bombarded with noise. Yeah. Sorry to get on my soapbox, but you asked over there.
That's quite okay.
Yes. Oh my goodness. My goodness. And then the whole 5G. Oh my goodness. So. Yeah.
I have a question. Can I speak?
Yes.
Yes.
My name is Jan Fjellander. Many people speak about other entities entering into the healing process. It could be angels, it could be nature spirits, it could be deceased people. You mentioned UFOs. There are all sorts of ideas about this. Can you comment on that?
Yes, I did. I did my healing survey of healers, and that came out. They actually experience apparitions, the traditional parapsychology apparitions. They can smell spirits. They can hear them. They can see them out of the corner of their eye. They can, talk with them. I mean, there's things going on in the healing room that you probably wouldn't want to tell the general public. So, yeah, I was most fascinated with smelling them, actually, because that's I can smell a ghost, is how I can detect a ghost in a house. So I was fascinated that the healers were picking up on that. If someone was a big smoker, if they had a particular smell, there's, one person had an aunt who had an old suitcase that had a particular odor. And during a healing session, she could smell the odor of the aunt. Another one had a father who was a logger and, cut, sawmills, worked with lumber. And during healing session, she could smell sawdust. She knew he was in the room. So there's lots of odors associated with the deceased loved ones that were very specific and let people know.
Do you think that it make some healers, they call on some healing angels or healing spirits? Others don't. They just do a certain practice. I myself have been working a bit with the healing touch, and it's a system where you work with yourself, and well, you can also sort of try to approach in your mind some other entities. But do you know of anyone who has made a study together with some kind of measurement when they are making a call on healing spirits? And then, of course, it's also interesting to see if it is a psychological effect, which one could have that the healer doesn't tell if they make a call on a healing spirit or not, and to see if there is a difference.
No, thank you. Because I do have data. And I didn't show it. I haven't put it on my blog. I have a blog, and I didn't put it on my blog. Bankston was actually married to a woman who also tried healing, and she would call on spirits. And when she sent distant healing, it was a different magnetic field activity. And I associate it with divine beings coming in. There's a more beautiful, complex, ropey magnetic field that I didn't show you. There is a different one when divine beings are coming in. It's this gorgeous, it almost looks like a DNA helix or something. It's very beautiful. And I haven't pursued that. You're right. I should write a blog on it, because one day I was doing ultrasound recordings. I was trying to pick up some sort of sound, and I was hearing through the microphone. I was hearing this very strange music. It was this lovely da 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 da, and I thought, oh my God, those are the spirits. And it was a healer who was calling in spirits. And I thought I was hearing them, but I couldn't find it on the recording. And I'm very frustrated, because I was certain I was hearing what she was calling in. And I've also, like I said, some magnetic field recordings, they're distinctly different. They're distinctly different. And you're right, but I haven't done it systematically. I do know that one day I was working on a woman who was very close to Holy Spirit. She was actually a healer in her church. And I was working on her, and all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, there's this cloud above us. And I thought, oh my God, she has called in Holy Spirit. So even the client can call in one of these. Yeah,
I didn't quite follow what you just said. Did you make a recording of some kind of paranormal sound, or
I tried. Yes.
subjective feeling that there was sound?
Yes, no, they have this ultrasound would change the frequencies so you could hear it as it was recording ultrasound. So it changed it into the frequencies, audio frequencies, as I was recording ultrasound. So I heard this music, and it wasn't on. I'm not good enough with audio to find it on the tape. It was different, and
I see. So you have this recording of
yes,
ultrasound, like when you are
a bat, like a bat.
like bat transforming. Yes. Okay, but you didn't hear it yourself.
I heard it through the speaker. I heard it through the speaker.
I understand. Okay.
I heard it.
Oh, that's
Yeah. So I think you're right. I think you're on the right track. I think it's possible that we can hear and we can record when there's divine beings or spirits in the room. I have not systematically studied it. I think I could ask some healers to call in people or don't call in people and control and compare the two recordings. Thank you.
You have a feeling it makes a difference?
Yes, I do. I do.
Can you tell more about that?
No, the waveforms are different. I haven't even talked about, there seems to be some different waveforms. I've just shown you the most common waveform. I've not shown you all the waveforms. I could wait. I could call up this one. I have this one that was, if I could find it, let's see. Let's see. Oh, I know, it was probably under, yeah, no, I'll have to send it. I'll send it in to maybe show a picture of it with the packet.
You will send some extra material, some references to Europe.
Yes.
That's so. And
Yes,
will you distribute it to those who are listening in on this?
I'm happy to.
At least I can put it on the Facebook and our website.
Yeah.
And if
please do.
If anybody is especially interested, you can email me. That's the most simple way.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a recording years ago of a priest healer. Ron Roth was his name, wrote a lot of books. He was a hands-on healer. And he did a joint session with a Native American Lakota Indian. And they did a joint healing session. And that's where I first saw those really beautiful waves that I just very unusual. Some unusual waves, you know. Yeah.
I have another question.
Yes.
You mentioned, if it's all right, perhaps there is someone else.
No, go ahead.
Okay. You mentioned someone registering photon emission from chakra areas. I have understood that photon emission is a very potential field for this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Do you know of anyone doing general research with photon emission, that the healer or the body, either of the healer or of the client, emits photons during a healing session?
Well, I know Beverly Rubick has done experiments. She has a lab and she's done experiments with a healing. I know that John Kruth at the Rhine Center, he wants to do more. They've done photon release at the Rhine Center in North Carolina, and they're planning more experiments.
Yeah, what was his name?
John Kruth, Kruth.
Yeah. Yes, we had him digitally a year ago.
I know he's trying to raise money to do more experiments, and photon, the biophoton, yeah.
Okay,
And he's very interested in healing. So he will do the experiments as soon as he gets the money.
okay.
I did some simple experiment with a British healer, Matthew Manning. It's fairly well known. And the experiment was that we asked him to be completely neutral, and then we took a Kirlian photograph of the classical method with the film in a dark room and the finger on the film. And then we asked him to switch the power on and off, and on and off, and we took pictures. And it was very dramatic differences between these photos.
Wow.
So Kirlian photography is, seems to be another possible way of registering some kind of energy there.
Yes, they do. Right. It's yeah, it can show some interesting things. Yep. Jeanette is asking a question. The frequencies in the EM fields measured during healing. That wave is 0 to around 30, maybe 33 hertz. So the wave that we've seen is low frequencies, and it changes as it goes. But embedded within the wave, there are particular spikes, there's particular frequencies that change by the different clients, the different symptoms. There's additional frequencies that show up, and they're higher. So you might be something like at 412 peak, embedded within this lower frequency field wave. So there's others. And as far as the chakras are, there was an interesting study in Indonesia looking at the megahertz frequencies being emitted by the chakras. And they were in the correct range. I believe they were like 37 to 84 megahertz, different frequencies from the different chakras. And people said, oh no, that's AM radio or something. But we know that the body has a resonant frequency. I think it's 53 megahertz. So the body has multiple resonant frequencies. And one of them is in the radio frequency range. And that's why they say it's very dangerous to work with that particular frequency, that it's in a resonant range with our body. It's not healthy to be with it. Yeah, but there's certain frequencies that don't make sense with the neurons. Thank you for mentioning the neurons. So the 30 to 30 hertz, that makes sense. And we certainly see gamma frequencies, up to 80, 100 hertz. So there's certain frequencies that make sense with neurons, but then we get these other frequencies that don't make sense. And then you're talking about molecular. You're talking some of them, the vibrations of the molecules are adding up. DNA, I think, is in the low gigahertz range. And that's why the cell phones are very dangerous. I believe that they're in the DNA range, some of them. So there's molecular vibrations, not just neuronal vibrations. Sorry, I'm just I'm ranting now, but yeah, it's really complex. I hope the biofield is a lot of different frequencies.
Yeah, it seems so. And still not really, those doing research in healing and coming across the biofield idea, they start to get convinced that it exists, but rather few people understand that it exists, and most of them, they don't know anything about it.
Yeah, it's going to take a big mapping project, I think, for the biofield, because there's so many range of frequencies that could be active in the field. Yeah.
Yeah, and also hesitate for the term subtle energy. What does subtle mean? Is it a frequency or what is it?
Yeah, it's you can sort of feel it.
Yeah, it's a lack of good words.
Yeah. Marie asked about body polarity. I haven't studied it. I've actually had body polarity sessions, and wow, they're powerful. there's people who can feel the differences between the right and left, and they can balance the two sides of the body. It's hard to find those people, but it's really effective, balancing the polarity. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So still
Yeah.
more approaches.
Yes, I know. I'm sorry. we can just talk about healing, for a long
Yeah.
time, but it's
Yeah.
fun. It's really fun. So
Okay, but you have looked at local effects. Do you think there are any quantum effects locally, or is it just distant healing where quantum effects are?
no,
not needed?
I find that the healing locally is the same as distant, and for some reason the distance doesn't matter, and it's very puzzling, right? I mean, it's the same waves are at both locations, and how are they connected? I don't have a clue. Sorry.
No,
Like Dr. Bankston now, he always says, I don't know how it works. I don't know.
no, I've noticed that they understand that quantum entanglement may be involved in distance because the effect must be there. And maybe it's also involved in local, but it's not that necessary. I mean, that's
Yeah. I try to use the word multi-dimensions or extra dimensions, and people go nuts and say, oh, you can't talk about other dimensions. And I was like, all right. All right, you're right. I don't know anything about other dimensions. I don't know, but
no. It's better to talk about magnetic fields. They know that.
yes, much safer, much safer. Yeah, thank you.
Yes,
All
okay.
right. Well, it's fun.
Okay, anybody else? Otherwise, we have been talking for about an hour. Maybe we are fine with that.
Well, thank you for your questions,
Yeah,
your interest, and
yeah, very good to know more about your research,
Yeah,
and
it's
we
always-
keep in touch.
yeah, I love the Zoom thing, just connecting around the world. I think it's so important for us to be connected like this. So thank you for
Yeah,
inviting me. Yeah.
okay,
All
okay.
right. Okay, thank you all.
Bye-bye, bye-bye.